we learn a new topic, expression language. JSP expression language. So usually people call it EL. Yeah. Part 8.3, Introduction to EL. Yeah. Why we need to use this language? The first question, we need to understand expression language makes it simple. Here, you know, the reason, make it simple. Make what simple? Yeah. So what is this? Make it simple. Yeah. We want to do things in a simple way, but what do we want to do? First, let's look at the goal. So we need a simple and efficient way to display data. We want to make this simple. Display data. This task simple. In a JSP, usually we need to display a lot of data, right? So data stored in, different forms. So when we retrieve data and display, there are many different ways. So now, what is the simplest way to display data? We want to write simple expression to display data. So we do not want to write many lines, so then display data. So that's not efficient. So we want to write a short, simple expression and put there, right there, and then we display the data quickly. That's the goal we want to get there. Okay? All right. So now, how do we do it? Format of EL expressions. The format is very simple. All right. So EL expressions are always within curly braces, a pair of curly braces, and prefixed with dollar sign. Dollar sign, after that, curly braces. So the format like this. Okay? Person dot name. Person, some object. Okay? The reference of some object. Or we can also call the variable name, but it's an object. Okay? So what kind of object? So later we will, typically Java Bean. So Java Bean. A Bean or JSP Bean. More general, JSP Bean. Dot name. Name is a property of this Bean. So this Bean could have many different properties. So a property of this Bean. So here you can see this simple expression. You can display a property called a name of that being. So that being has the reference name person. That simple. Okay? If you compare with the old way, so old way, if you want to display data in a quick way, how do you do it? So in a JSP scriptlet, in a JSP expression, so you need to write relatively more code to do the same thing. So here you can see this way is very simple. And very easy to understand the structure of the data. So let's look at a little more. The first named variable. Here, two parts, right? Person dot name. Person we call the first named variable. Okay? In the expression is either an implicit object. Here it tells you what can be used as the first named variable. Two possibilities. The first one, implicit object. So JSP implicit object, right? So there are 9 different JSP implicit objects. Okay? Request, response, session, right? Out, right? Page context, right? There are a total 9 different JSP implicit objects. So that's the first case. Second case, an attribute. Yeah. So you store your data as attributes in some scope. Could be some scope, right? Yeah. Page scope, request scope, session scope, application scope. 4 different JSP scopes. Yeah. So you can see if your data comes from those 2 places, yeah, so you can use this EL expression to display in a quick, simple, straightforward, logical way. Yeah. All right. Another newer version of EL. Yeah. So here you can see this way, the original first way is the dot operator. Dot operator. Yeah. So we're familiar with the dot operator. But there is another way, newer version, yeah, later. So people, designers, creators, so they felt, so this way has its advantage. So use a new way to, do the EL expression. The first named variable followed by a pair of square brackets around the second named variable. That expression, the dot operator way still works. Now we use the square bracket way. Okay, for example, for that expression, this time we use square bracket way. Yeah. This way, so later you will see it has its advantage. Yeah. It can do a little more than dot operator way. This way, you can do a little more, several things that dot operator cannot do. Yeah, so that's why this square bracket way, the newer way, can make your EL more powerful. Yeah, we will discuss that later. Yeah, later we will spend quite some time to discuss how to use the square bracket way for the EL. Yeah. All right. Next, design goal and the priority of scopes. Yeah. First, design goal. Yeah. So EL is not designed to replace Java. Yeah. Here, when we talk about the Java, we talk about embedded Java code in JSP. Embedded Java code. Yeah. So remember, we talked about one principle a long time ago. In JSP, we tried to minimize the Java code. In order to make your JSP easier to maintain, many programmers, they need to maintain JSP files. In order to make that easier to maintain, we try to minimize the Java code. All right, so here, using EL, you can use less Java code because the EL expression we do not treat as the original Java code. It's not. Yeah. So you can see when you use the dollar curly braces expression or this way, you put this expression directly in the HTML content. Okay, you directly in HTML content. Yeah. If you want to insert a piece of dynamic information, you just put this expression there. You do not need to use any symbols like, this kind of thing to embed Java code. You do not. Yeah. So that's why we do not call this EL the usual Java statements. So it's not. Okay? Yeah. It's a special expression. Yeah. Special JSP expressions. Yeah. All right. Okay. Yeah. So instead, it is designed to provide you with the tools you need to create JSPs without Java, without regular Java code. Yeah. So this expression exists in the not PHP, HTML environment. HTML environment. So not Java environment, HTML environment. So think about that difference. Yeah. So that's the design goal. Okay. All right. Priority of various scopes. Now you need to think about, so when we go a little deeper, so remember this attribute case, right? So we can store our data as attributes in different scopes. Okay. Yeah. More specifically, page scope, request scope, session scope, the last one, application scope, right? Yeah. 4 scopes. Yeah. But think about this very special situation. Yeah. In each scope, we can use certain attribute, right? We can use certain attribute. Yeah. Suppose I use attribute book. Okay. Yeah. All right. I use attribute book to store an object containing book information, right? Yeah. I can store it in page scope. I can store it also in request scope, session scope, application scope. All right, 4 different scopes. But I use the same name, same book attribute name. 4 different scopes. Each one I have a book attribute name for my object. Yeah. So here when I retrieve, so when I use curly braces, $book to retrieve the book information, which object do I retrieve by default? Oh, priority. Yeah. The priority is page scope has the highest priority. Yeah. Request scope second highest. Then session scope, the last one, application scope. Yeah. So that means the EL engine. So here, there is something called the EL engine. So this engine processes the EL expressions. The EL engine search the page scope first. If it can find the book object, attribute, name, book object, then retrieve it. If not, then go to request scope. Then if it cannot find it, session scope, and the last one, application scope. That priority. Okay, yeah. So pretty straightforward. Yeah. Looks for implicitly scoped variable. Yeah. So in that order. Okay. So you can see in that order. Yeah. Okay. All right. Another property. No public field access. In a Java bean, we can put some public fields, right? Other than our instance variable or other than our properties, we have setters, getters for our properties. We can also use some special public fields, right? Public fields. But when you use the EL expression, you cannot access public field. You cannot. So that's the rule. You cannot access. Yeah. Yeah. The reason is very simple. Because for public fields, in your Java bean, you do not provide setters, getters, right? Because you change the values of your public fields directly. It's public. You just set it. Okay? When you get it, you just dot your public field name, retrieve it, and set it without using setters and getters. But for EL to access a piece of data, it use setter, getters. Use setter, yeah. Getter, yeah. Actually, because either using EL, when we use EL, we only use it to display data. Remember, display. We use getters to display. retrieve data. We do not set data using EL. EL, the purpose is display data. So using getters, we never change data using EL. We never change our data using EL. So we never call setters for our, Java beans through EL. Yeah. So that's something important we need to know. Yeah. All right. Yeah. So here just a simple introduction. Yeah. Later we will learn more rules, more properties, and many different ways to use the EL. Yeah. All right. So let me stop here. Yeah.